If there's one person in the world that I love to see get absolutely dunked on and just get completely fact checked and educated in a clip, it is the racist slob Randy Fine. In this clip, we're going to see Chris Cuomo, who's someone that I'm not the biggest fan of, but we're going to see Chris Cuomo finally say something to a Republican's face and tell the people the truth when it comes to the SAVE Act and why it disenfranchises voters rather than making American elections more safe. As usual, let's watch the clip in full. I'm going to hold my commentary and my thoughts towards the end, and then I'm going to come back and give you guys my opinion then. All I'm going to say with this one, keep an eye on Randy Fine's face when Chris Cuomo tells the truth about the SAVE Act. Let's get into it.
So if the president wants the SAVE Act, Ami, here's my pitch on the SAVE Act, okay? Of course it's 80-20 that with the American people that you should use an ID to vote because they're thinking it's an ID just like their driver's license or any other ID. They're not understanding that this is going to be harder to get. So here's my idea on the SAVE Act for you guys. Well, I mean, it is. It's harder to get what they want. If you need a passport or you need your birth certificate, that's harder than a driver's license in a lot of states. Randy, that's all I'm saying. So let's do this. Keep it the way you want, Randy. Well, what I'm saying is true, but hold on. What if you flip the mechanism? Don't put it on the people, put it on the government. Have them do the outreach, contact the voters, and champion the process so that it's not so onerous on people who don't have the money or the inclination or the documents, don't have a passport, have the complication of being a married woman with a different name or a college kid, or they don't have a driver's license. Put it on the government. Have them do it. That's my first idea. You can have the ID, but the government should facilitate it, Randy. Would you be okay with that?
Chris, but that's not what the proposal is. A driver's license would be adequate in order to vote. The things you're talking about with a passport is a one-time thing to prove you're a citizen when you register to vote, much like you have to do when you do a lot of things. But the driver's license that Americans have is all you need. And by the way, we do this today in Florida, the third largest state in the country, and our elections work just fine. In fact, it appears that Democrats may win some elections in Florida tonight, despite the fact that we require photo IDs. So the idea that people object to photo IDs, it's ridiculous. We ought to just do it. 80% of Americans want it. 70% of Democrats want it. There's no reason not to do it.
There's no question. But Ami, when you ask them if they want this law, you only have 30% of people who say they want it because of the process attached and trying to hem in early voting and mail-in voting. By the way, Randy Fine, and then Ami, I'm giving it to you. You know who just voted early and voted by mail? President Donald John Trump in Florida. So I don't know how evil a thing it could be. But Ami, what do you think of this deal?
So we want American citizens to vote. We should try to get better voter participation. It's not about showing an ID. It's about when you're registering to vote. I would bet less than 50% of Americans have a passport. I would bet there are a lot of Americans, particularly women, who get married, change their maiden name. So it's different than what's on their birth certificate. I do think it puts an onerous burden on a problem that's not actually there. When you look at the data about voter fraud, it's actually a very rare instance. 2020 was the most litigated election that we've ever had. And there were very few incidences of voter fraud. Again, we could get there. We want Americans to vote. I agree with you, Chris. We should make it easier for American citizens to register to vote. We should go to those high schools and before they graduate, let the parties present their platforms and encourage those high school students to vote and verify their citizenship at that point if you want.
I also have one other idea that I'm going to get yelled at for giving, but I'm giving it anyway, Randy, and you can take it and you can make it your own. Instead of the early voting and the mail-in voting, because again, I don't know why you want to collapse participation when you don't have a demonstrable fraud issue. What if you replace those provisions with shutdowns are illegal, and if you can't make a deal, you default to the last time that the spending was voted on. And the other rule is 67 votes to change any rules in the Senate so the filibuster is safe. So that, because you know what happens if we lose the filibuster in the Senate, right? You know it becomes a mobocracy, right? And you guys will just wind up swinging back and forth from crazy town to crazy town. What do you think of those two substitutes, Randy?
Well, look, I think the first idea is a reasonable one. I think the issue as it relates to elections is this. Mail-in ballots are inherently insecure. Everyone agrees on this. You never know who got it. You never know who filled it out. You never knew who sent it in. And that is a challenge with mail-in balloting. That is the concern. But when it comes to voter ID and proving citizenship to register, those are things that are overwhelmingly supported by everybody. And we ought to get it done. And I don't see Democrats should simply say, fine, we're not going to give you mail-in balloting, but we will give you photo ID. Do that. Let's move in the right direction and see if we can get it done.
As long as the process is done with the onus on the government, because you can't put it on people because you're going to disenfranchise people.
Would you be fine
Look,
if
I have no.
if you show your driver's license, you're good? That's the rule. You got a driver's license, you show
I think that's better. I think it's better because it's less onerous. Because the whole point is to have this is a solution in search of a problem.
I don't.
You know what I
agree
mean?
with
You
that.
say,
No.
I know you
I
don't, and
disagree.
you don't have to agree with it, but you can't prove I'm wrong, okay? And you can't do that with mail-in voting, and you can't do that with anything. These are all suspicions. Every time someone searches, we don't have a demonstrable problem. But would it be better if there's ID? Fine, but you can't do it in a way where it makes fewer people vote. That's robbing the franchise. But let's keep talking. Randy, appreciate you. Ami, appreciate you. Both of you, be well.
You see, this is the thing for me. And like I said, Chris Cuomo, I'm not the biggest fan of. But the funny thing for me is this. Randy Fine, he sat there when Chris was speaking and saying what he's saying in regards to the SAVE Act disenfranchising voters. But did you realize he didn't explain and give the reasoning as to why what Chris Cuomo was saying wasn't true? He didn't do that. He just sat there shaking his head. This is the reality when it comes to the SAVE Act. And may I just throw out there, it's funny that Donald J. Trump is consistently always speaking about, voting by mail. It shouldn't be done. It's a fraud. It shouldn't be legal. But he voted by mail in the elections that took place within Florida. Isn't that ironic? But hey ho, let's keep it moving anyway. Listen, the reality for me is this. The SAVE Act, Republicans are trying to paint it in a way, this is an 80-20 issue. But the reality behind why it's an 80-20 issue is because a large majority of the 80% don't even know the reality and what is in the finer details when it comes to the SAVE Act. Because the reality is this, the SAVE Act would require people to show specific documents, such as passports or birth certificates, to be able to register or stay registered. But the reality is this, not everyone has them handy, and some of them don't even have them at all. I'm going to be honest with you guys, I live in the UK. If we want to leave the country, of course, we've got to have a passport. Now, a lot of Americans don't have passports. You know, you guys have got it all. You've got states where it probably snows, but you've got a lot of states where it's very, very sunny. You've got states where it's hot, you know? So a lot of people don't have passports, but the fact that it is that certain documents are going to be needed, that is going to block eligible voters because they don't have the correct paperwork ready. Secondly, it literally hinders certain groups. It hinders certain groups and makes it harder for them. People that are older, people that are on low incomes that haven't got the money to be able to go and purchase the right documents. People that live in rural communities where they have to spend hours and hours to be able to get to the place where they need to get to be able to purchase that specific document. These are people that are less likely to have easy access to the documents or easy access to be able to obtain those documents. Married women are another one who change their names and they may have mismatched documents. And as a result of that, they could potentially be removed from voter rolls or they can be prevented from registering to vote, point blank period. This is what the problem is. And these are the things that Republicans won't go on television and speak to the American people about, because the reality is this, the SAVE Act has nothing to do with securing elections. What the SAVE Act is about is making elections harder for people that would probably vote Democrat to vote, because Republicans know the truth. The Republicans know that if the people actually knew their agendas as plain and as clear as it was for people to see, guess what? They probably wouldn't get voted into power. That's the reason as to why. Now, when you take a look and you understand this, that the more document checks that are added into the process, you have to understand more time and more chances for things like mistakes to be able to happen and to take place. Local election offices getting overwhelmed because of the fact that there's more bureaucracy and more delays that have been added to it. So more rules can slow things down and cause confusion amongst voters, as well as the officials that are helping in those elections. The reality is this: the Save Act is trying to solve a problem that is already so rare. And that's the reason as to why Chris Cuomo said what he said. It's offering a solution when there isn't really that much of a problem. Non-citizens voting in the United States of America is already illegal, and it's extremely uncommon. And all it is just a law that is fixing a problem that barely exists. But I explain the reason as to why. This is how Republicans, this is how MAGA and the GOP can win. This is how, because they know if they lose the midterms that are coming up, Donald Trump's presidency is effectively over, and him and this administration are going to be held accountable. Let me know your guys' thoughts on this clip between Chris Cuomo and the absolute slob Randy Fine in the comment section below. Do me a favor, hype up the video, give the video a thumbs up, hit subscribe if you appreciate my commentary, my thoughts, and my perspective. And I will see you guys in the next clip.